Hi everybody, Sarah here. So it's been a while since I made a normal video, but I promised you guys that I would get my corn snake prices videos out, and I still intend to do that. So we're starting with some of the corn snake prices, not all of them, for 2024. Before we jump in though, I want to thank all of the members on this channel for making everything possible. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. If anybody else would like to become a member, you can click join under any video to do so. I know that there is some issues with some mobile devices, so if you're having any issue on your mobile device, you can try it on some sort of desktop or something like that, and that will usually fix the problem. So sorry if you've had any issues with that. That's a YouTube thing, not a me thing. Also, thank you to Reptilinks for helping to support this channel. If you use my code SarahSnake27 at checkout at reptilinks.com, you will get a discount on some of these amazing food items for your snakes. I have been posting lists of the snakes that I have for sale on the Show Me Marketplace, so if you would like to see everything that I have available, you can go there. We are working on getting my website back up and running. Squarespace has really screwed me over here. Squarespace has been a problem since I started with them. I do not recommend them. I hope they never come to me and be like, we want to do a sponsorship, because I really could not ever in good conscience support them. They have made my website process absolutely miserable. So all that is to say, my website has not been working for nearly a year thanks to them, and they will not let me out of the contract. So please check out the Show Me links down below. And one last thing I forgot is that I still have my books for sale. So anybody who is looking for my 2 corn snake morph books, the first one is all about the base mutations, the history of those, how they're inherited, stuff like that, with photos. And then the second one, again, also has a lot of photos, but it is about selectively bred type things instead of mutations. So if you're interested in those are available on Lulu. I will put them down in the description for you guys to go check out. I also have a corn snake calendar, and I'm going to try to start doing that every year. The calendar that I usually buy on Lulu is for the Savannah cat rescues, because I have a Savannah cat and I love him and I always wanted to support them, but they didn't make a calendar this year. So in light of that, I decided to go ahead and make my own calendar and have it printed, and you guys can also have it printed too. So if you would like to check that out, I'm going to just link all of them in the same Lulu link in the description down below. So please check those out if you are interested in that kind of stuff. So today we're going to be going over the average prices throughout the year of some of the localities and the more basic, more common morphs that are out there. I do want to keep in mind that all of these are babies, and these are all prices that are only in 2024, and they were collected throughout the season. So these are only baby prices. This is not yearlings. This is not adults. This is only babies that hatched in 2024. These prices were all gotten from July to December. And so just to kind of give you an idea, I have been collecting these prices over the course of the year. This is not just something that I just did just now, so that you all can get an idea of the trends. So we're going to start out with our typical normal corn snake. These started out the year at around $75, but by the end of the year we were looking at $40 to $50 on average. So the prices of these almost cut in half. The prices of corn snakes in general have gone down this year. Corn snakes, I think this year has really been kind of a panic year for a lot of people when it comes to money. So a lot of people are not spending that extra money on pets, and especially not pets like reptiles. Go on to the Okatee now. The Okatee started out a little bit pricier at $85, but then kind of went up actually in price by the end of the year. So normals and Okatees were on average very similar near the beginning of the hatching season and the selling season, but normals lowered in price and Okatees continued to go up in price. So that's pretty usual, I would say. Okatees do typically tend to sell more than just your typical normals. Miami being the next one. Miami actually started out at closer to $100 and pretty much stayed consistent throughout the whole year. Pretty much through the whole year, $100 for a baby Miami was what we were looking at. I didn't do anything with keys this year because other wild types, really, there's just not that many of them on the market. So trying to find average prices is really difficult. If there are very specific morphs that I do not mention in these categories, feel free to comment down below any ones that you would like me to focus on and go find that information for, or present that information for, because there's some morphs that I did a little bit of research on, but I will not actually be presenting in these videos because there's just so many of them. And so if there's anything particularly that you would like me to show, please let me know, and I'll do that for future videos in this series. So we're going on to the hets now, and when I say hets, I mean things that are het for valuable mutations. So we have het palmetto, het scaleless, and het microscale in here. Het palmettos and het scaleless both are now, there's almost no reason for me to mention the hets anymore. So a typical het palmetto started out at $100. It pretty much stayed there for the majority of the season. It dipped down a little bit into the like averaging more like 75, 80 kind of in like October, but then November, December, the het palmettos went back up to like 100, maybe like 110. So we're for just like a normal, nothing, regular old het palmetto, it's about the same price as like Okeetees are, or Miamis are this year. Het scaleless was very similar. The het scaleless were sitting pretty at about $100. And they didn't go up. They went up just slightly in the middle of the year, but then once we got to the end of the year, het scaleless was actually down to averaging about $70. And so our het scaleless is now more or less like the price of an Okeetee-ish, I would say. Het microscale was really, really difficult to find. I actually did not find any just het microscales that were for sale on Morph Market, save one, which was $600. So we're going to say that like $600 is roughly the price for a het, which makes sense because of visual. Well, we'll get into the visuals later. Well, we're getting into the visual singles now, so I'll just tell you visual microscales, we're going for about 1,000. Pretty much throughout the year, a visual microscale was going for anywhere from like 1,000 to like 1,300. But the 1,300s were ones that were up, that had like other mutations, so like stripes or motleys, other mutations in there. Those were the ones that were going for a little bit more money. On to the singles. The general trend overall is that we started with like what I would consider to be our typical averages, basing off of last year, and then prices kind of went up a little bit and then they went way back down. That's kind of how everything went this year. So with AML, we started out at about 75. It peaked at about 130 on average, and 75 is pretty much where it has stuck. It's very similar with Anery, although Anery is mostly staying at like 70 instead of 75. I have Buff on this list. Looks like Buff was also going for around 100, between 70 to 100. It's really difficult, once again, to get averages for some of these because there just wasn't much data to go off of. Charcoal started out at around $90, and it looks like by the end, they'd actually gone up in price a bit, averaging closer to like 120. So we do see some of these snakes going up in price. Lavender was really, really pricey this year. There were not very many lavenders, but the ones that I saw, they were averaging like 150. We even got some just regular lavenders, nothing else, no like notable hets. Some hets obviously, but het hypo, het AML, those things don't really matter too much when it comes to prices. But we had lavenders going for like $300. So I'd say lavender is one to get into if you're looking to make some money on a single mutation. Caramel was somewhat similar in the beginning, started out with $100, but then once again, went down to about 85. Hypo did a similar trend. Some hypos were selling for as much as 175, but that was an outlier. We're not going to see that very much in here for any of the single mutations. At the end of the year, hypo did sort of level back out to an average of about 75. So for most of the single mutations, we're looking at about like $75-ish. And then, except for those that were a little less common, which were selling for a bit more. Oddly enough, palmetto was selling for about the same price as some lavenders this year. Palmettos pretty much stayed at about 350. Motley was, oddly enough, staying at a pretty high price this year. Motley's across the board stayed over 120, except for in 1 month they dipped down into the 60s, but all of the other times Motley stayed above $100. So our average throughout the year was 120 for Motley's. And for Tesseras, it was actually about 100. I know that I've talked in the past about how surprised I am that Tessera is not as like sought after as it used to be, because I remember when Tessera was like the new biggest thing. But it is now selling for about the price of your typical like Okatee Miami, kind of tapering out at about $90 average for the majority of Tesseras. 95 it looks like is the number. Another one that surprised me was Sunkissed. I almost always expected Sunkissed to be a good price, but we actually saw Sunkissed dip down. Like it was 75, and some of them sold for like 100, but we actually ended up with more of like a $75 to $80 average price for Sunkissed this year. Now I know that Ultramel is technically 2 mutations, but I'm also considering like Ultra. So like Ultra and Ultramel usually go for like the same price. So I'm putting them under the same category, and I am going to put them in this single. And they were selling for about 150 this year. So again, Ultra and Ultramel both were actually pretty high price. Now 150 was kind of on the higher end. So our average prices for Ultras and Ultramels were more in the like 135 range. But to see Ultras and Ultramels up there in price is I really like that, of course, because I love making Ultramels, and so as someone who breeds and sells snakes, and I'm seeing that Ultramels are doing well, that's always good. That's always good for me to see. Castagna was actually one that we saw kind of a lot of this year, which is unusual. I don't know if I've ever actually talked about Castagna in one of these videos, but there was enough of them to get a decent average. It looks like 125 is where Castagna was sitting for the majority of this year, but the average was at 120. It kind of dipped down a little bit, and so that average was at 120 for Castagna. But interestingly enough, it actually made it on the list this year. There's a lot of morphs that are just so uncommon that I cannot get an average on them, like, because there's just not enough. There's not enough. Sometimes I don't even see one of these morphs just being for sale by itself throughout the year, more or less trying to get an average every single month. Cinder was one that was a little difficult to get an average on, but we did have a few, and it looks like our average is about 85 on Cinder as well. Diffused had an average of about $100. Hey, future Sarah in editing here. I realized that I forgot Scaleless. Scaleless's average was very close to 300. It seemed like every time I looked at prices, there was like a chunk in the sort of lower like 250 area, and then there was a chunk that was like up in the 350 to 400 area, but it overall Scaleless averaged to be about $300. Things that I could not really find any of this year were Lava and Toffee. Those were two that I can say I really could not find any on at all. Same with Strawberry, same with Christmas. So we have a lot of these sort of like hypo-ish mutations out there that there just were not too many of for some reason. Also, I have a few updates. We have a Patreon. There's not anything really going on it right now, but it's up, it's running, it's ready to go. So if you guys would rather be on Patreon instead of being a member on this channel, that's now an option. I will link that in the description below. I do still have a Morph Market account, and I plan to use it, but it's just not the platform that I'm selling the most on right now. We'll see how that goes. I'm kind of feeling out some of the other sites right now. We may gravitate back toward Morph Market. I am still on there if you want to follow the store to see what pairings and such I will have. And that also leads me to another update, which is not so great. A lot of you may have seen, if you follow my Facebook page, that I lost a lot of my adults this year due to some bedding that actually had some rat poison in it. Just trust your bedding sources. That's all I can say. I decided to get from a new source just because it was a bit cheaper, and it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. So just warning to everyone, trust your bedding source and your food source and all that. And also, I will not be producing quite as many snakes next year as I anticipated. However, a lot of the snakes that I will be producing will be being used for my master's program. So I can't say for sure what snakes I'll have available or what snakes I will be pairing. I will do another video pretty soon, kind of updating all of you on the details on all of that. But for right now, just kind of know things are kind of up in the air with my upcoming season. I'm not really sure what's going to be going on. We'll also be going to the Show Me Reptile Expo in Fort Wayne, Indiana in February. And so if you're interested in coming to see what I have available, there's not a ton, but I do have like some snakes still available from last season. And as I mentioned, since it's kind of up in the air what will be happening with the snakes that I produce next season, this might be like the only chance to really buy anything from me in 2025. I'm not really sure, so just kind of letting you guys know. And if there's anything that you would like to do to help me, just interacting with any of the videos on this channel also just really helps, even if you just have it on in the background. I know a lot of people like to just listen to my videos while they're doing other things, and I really appreciate that. So thank you guys for just being here for me. I do still have 2 more of these already recorded of these videos, and I will have another one that I will also record after you guys get all of your requests in. So if there's anything specific that I did not cover in this video, please let me know. I will cover it in a future video. That actually covers all of the wild types, expensive hets, and single mutations that I wanted to go over, or at least that I have like a notable amount of data for. Again, if there are any single mutations, any notable hets, or any notable wild types that you would like me to specifically go into, I will be taking all of the comments that you guys leave and doing that research for the final video. So if you do have any that pop into your mind and you're like, oh, I would really like to know about this, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in a new video soon.